The meeting is streaming live on Facebook right now. Sunil sir,
Yes, sir.
we are streaming live.
Yeah, sir. Yeah, yeah. Thank you.
पापा का स्लाइड बना दो।
Streaming starts on Facebook. I, Mrs. Premjit Gatiganti, would like to greet everyone a lovely Saturday evening. Why don't we make this evening not just wonderful, but also a day full of learning and new experiences? Yes, we have waited long for this day to come, and the long wait is over. On behalf of Team Ellie Mumbai and the entire teaching faculty of Maharashtra, it feels a great pleasure for me to introduce our today's keynote speaker, who is none other than Dr. Lakhbir Kaur Verma, Madam, a dynamic, creative speaker and a prolific writer. So let us have a glimpse of her position and achievement. She holds advanced degrees like MA in English from Ruia College, MPhil and PhD in comparative literature from University of Mumbai. Currently, she is working as a director at Guru Harkrishan High School and Junior College, Mumbai, and has 34 years of experience working at Guru Nanak Khalsa College of Arts, Science and Commerce, Matunga, Mumbai, as a language lecturer. She has won an award for the work which highlighted gender sensitivity while doing PhD in comparative literature. As a trainer, she has trained secondary school language teachers at Scotland in 1983, where English is not the native language, through the British Council Scholarship Program as a teacher of language and literature. She has anchored multi-language program for youth and women on All India Radio. She has several articles in Shikshan Sankraman, a monthly mouthpiece of State Board of Maharashtra, Pune. She has been invited as a keynote speaker in many schools and junior colleges to promote English language in the Mofussil areas. Introduce creativity in the 11th and 12th course book, not only in poetry, but also in the earlier rapid reading section. She is an elite member of the Board of Studies at Balbharti and Textbook Committee, HSC Board, Pune. She is also writer of Sahitya Bharati books. She has been doing board works at Pune in various capacities for more than 15 years. She has been working as a resource person for training programs of teachers for 12 years as well as 24 years in Pune, Kolhapur, Raigad and Mumbai regions. Her third collection of poetry, Reminiscing, has been published. To sum up, I would like to say that she is a woman of virtue and simplicity. Her passion and energy seem to know no bonds. I feel elated to say that she is one of the dignitary personality in the field of education. She is here today to teach us poetic creativity. Without wasting much of her time, Ellie's platform is all yours. Over to you, Dr. Lakhbir ma'am. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Madam Premjit. And at the very outset, I really feel very humbled at a wonderful introduction about me. At the outset, I would like to thank all members of this very dynamic team of Ellie, where in their third webinar series, they are doing a really great job. I have been attending the series for the past 5 days, and I'm sure by the end of the entire curriculum, which they have so meticulously planned, all of you would just feel you have gone through the journey of the new course book. In these times of pandemic, when we are actually not able to go to our colleges, our workplaces, this team of very enthusiastic teachers of English language and literature are doing a fantastic job by bringing us all together on a platform. And I think not only teaching, but a beautiful learning experience to all of us, all we English teachers, so that we will be doing a good service for our students. So I'm sure that this will go a long way to carve a niche for themselves and for all of us in our minds, that these team of enthusiastic English teachers are doing a fantastic job, not only for Mumbai, but for the entire state of Maharashtra. I'm really proud of the work you are doing. And I'm thankful to all of you, the entire team of 1415 enthusiastic teachers, for giving me this platform to share my ideas on poetic creativity. Now, I would like to definitely make one submission here, and that is that for the past 5 days that I have been listening to various renowned experts, speakers of English literature and language, I am going to talk of a topic which is not in per se to a particular poem, but it is basically going to take you to a journey of poetic creativity. So what we are going to do today is not a particular poem, but a series of poems that we have in the entire course book, in our present textbook, the new textbook. Now, if I look at these last 5 days, probably we have already covered 3 poems in great minute details. And when I look at the entire curriculum planned by the team of LE members, I feel they have covered all the 8 poems. So that only brings me to one very beautiful idea when I was thinking about it, that all teachers love to teach poetry. In my years of teaching, and I still teach, I found that everybody was very passionate about teaching poetry, and they all felt, and whenever I talked to my colleagues at Khalsa, that why do you want to teach poetry? They said, well, we feel we can self-express ourselves, we do justice to our degrees, and we have the freedom to express. So all these ideas, you see, over a period of time, made me understand that it was poetry that probably not only fascinated all of us, but all teachers teaching any language, whether it's Hindi or Marathi. We find that the first thing they would always like to take or begin their lectures would be with poetry. So today, friends, you are all very learned people, having a lot of teaching experience. What I have tried to do in this presentation today is merely give you an insight into what this creativity is. Because we at the board have already introduced this 3 years ago. So it was introduced when we had the old Yuvak Bharati, and we brought in a small question there so that we could give opportunities to teachers as well as to students to look at their learning experience from a new perspective. So today, what we are going to do is actually, I will just take you to a journey of creativity, and especially poetic creativity that we have been talking about. So let us see what is our role, we as teachers, what we can do about creativity. Basically, our curriculum for the past many years, especially in English, has been a learner-centric, student-centric curriculum. It is not what we teach, but what kind of teaching and the effect it has on our students that has been of vital importance to us. So our curriculum basically is to understand, to comprehend what kind of effect it has on our learners. So our present book also is a learner-centric book. If you closely and minutely prepared by stalwarts at the Balbharti, you will see that everything that they have talked about in the book is learner-centric. What I mean by learner-centric education is that giving an opportunity for learners to observe, to be able to use language, to be able to take the liberty to express, and also at the same time enjoy what they learn. So therein comes our very special form of teaching, and that is poetry, which gives them all the freedom, not only to be one with the poet, but also to enjoy the learning experience of reading poetry. So our entire curriculum is learner-centric or student-centric curriculum. Now, there is something that we have to think about our teachers' attitude. You see, we traditional teachers have had certain very traditional beliefs about education. But the present day education talks about inculcating and valuing creativity, because you want to be different, not only in teaching and learning experience, but even when you graduate or you take up jobs. We value people who are different, who can think different, who have lateral thinking, tangent thinking, and who are able to make a difference to any organization also. So that's what we see as a resultant, a quotient after many years. What we expect in our teaching schedules is to value that. And who is going to value creativity? It is going to be the teachers who will value creativity. So here, as a teacher, I feel what we all need is a paradigm shift. I'm sure you will all agree with me that we do not want to have a correct answer, a definite answer. We want our students to have their minds open. We want to give them the freedom to express, because especially in poetry, we are not teaching grammar, we are not teaching syntax. What we are looking for is how much the learner, our student, is able to be a part of this learning experience. So what I expect here in the teacher's attitude is that teachers need to be very, very open and receptive to listen to the learners. Now here, of course, when we talk of the teacher's attitude, I will just share with you a small poem, which is the attitude of enthusiasm. Now, I'll just read this out so that you can understand that this will clarify to all of us what should be our attitude in a classroom, especially when we are teaching poetry. A mix of anticipation and joy for what might be, an idea full of wonder that all the world should see. Reflected in your attitude, I look at it from the teacher's point of view, and shown in all you do, whatever you do in the classroom, the way you teach, the way you read out the poetry, the way you, make the student feel the language expressed in the poetry. So that's your attitude. And all that you do in the class, the beliefs you carry with you, of hopes you hold true. So your own beliefs, your own hopes definitely interfere in the way you look at the poem, the way you interpret the poem. It doesn't come from knowing. You don't need to really know more. It only comes from the trust that you have in your students and their capacities. A growing well of energy. It's just that you are always talking to bubbling, young, enthusiastic, inquisitive minds, which are well of energy. So we don't have to let this well of their learning abilities and capabilities dry out. That soon is bound to burst. I'm sure by the end of the time you finish teaching poem, your student also has so many thoughts that he would like to share. Share your enthusiasm. Make him feel important. You also share, because we all like to enter a class very enthusiastically. Every time we go to our class to teach anything anew, we always wonder, how best can I do it? How well can I do it? How enthusiastically can I really motivate my children to learn? So with the same enthusiasm, you need to infuse that into your learners in everything you do. And then what do you see? The result. This is what I mean by creativity. You'll find it is contagious, wonderful, and true. So these few lines probably tell us that we teachers need to have a very strong paradigm shift. And once we have that, then we have already made a leveled platform for our teachers or for our students to be receptive towards us. So the teacher's attitude of accepting response. And here I would say a teacher should be capable of reading the poem with proper intonation, proper stress, read it aloud so that it is impactful, and then of course, allow students to enjoy the experience. So this is the first and the foremost thing when you think of creativity. So now I would like my participants. I have chosen poetry, a topic close to my heart, given to me for this evening's presentation. What do you think are probably the reasons very special to poetry? Why is it a special genre? I would like some of you to, before I share and tell you what I think about it, I would really appreciate if some of you can tell me, before I start telling you, anybody who would like to speak and tell me why is poetry a special genre? Yeah, anybody would like to? Yeah. Yes. Somebody says it connects you to emotions. Yes, very, very true. It gives you pleasure, right? It appeals to the heart. Rosina said, yes. Sandhya Nautiyal is an expression of thoughts, very good. Seema Shinde, yes, for enjoyment. Sri Raj, imaginative, little bit of words, tell feelings. Then Shalini says it expresses a lot in very few words. Very good. It's a powerful expression, right? Very, very good interaction, because this is what poetry is all about. It is saying a very lofty thing, a very beautiful concept in a very terse and a very, very brief expression. Now let's look at it. As Dr. Pradhan that day said, that every word that is written in the poem is very carefully chosen by the poet. And that is very true. The first and foremost thing that when we teach poetry, because as a genre of literature, it is basically for enjoyment. Because this enjoyment is not only an enjoyment of the sensory pleasures. You see, it gives you a lot of kind of what we can talk in the Indian literature as the rasas. It evokes emotion of love. It evokes emotion of happiness, sadness, depending on the theme of the poem. It gives you the emotion of love, beauty. So that's the basic quality of poetry. Now, what makes poetry very different from other things? And that is its rhythmic quality. We all teach rhyme schemes, right? And it is the rhythmicality of the poem, you know, that lends it apart, and it stands out. Now, what is this rhythmicality? See, I am talking about it. We all know that there is rhythm in poetry, but we are going to teach creativity. And creativity can be taught. This is what I'm going to ultimately come to. So when we talk of rhymes, you see, we talk of flowing rhymes, regular rhymes, progressive rhymes, alternate rhymes. Like if you have a flowing rhyme in the end, it's called the end rhyme: ground, found, mount, sound, that way. Then you have internal rhymes also in poetry. That is vary and woe and vary, weak and vary. These are internal. There are some which are partial rhymes. I'm sure you as teachers of English language and literature are aware of it. Now, thumb with gun is not a perfect rhyme. It's a partial rhyme. Milk and walk. The LK is similar, but the pronunciation is different. So we call this as a partial rhyme. Then there are some rhymes which are called I rhymes. The words sound, look similar. Like for example, bow and rough. So OUGH is the same thing, but it is not a perfect rhyme. It's a rhyme only to the I. Then we have some kind of what we call perfect rhymes in English. And those are like the homonyms, raise and raise, R-A-Z-E, R-A-I-S-E. So rhythm comes from rhyme, comes from the length of the lines, the meter that is used in poetry. The most important thing, a very, very special feature to poetry is recitability. You see, the way poetry is written, the way words are placed, the way meter is used, the way rhyme schemes are used. You see, when you become so much one with the poem, it just remains in your mind. And quite often, many of us, whatever we studied as students, we find that we are able to just quote and recite them. Like my heart leaps up when I behold a rainbow in the sky. The whole process of leaping up. Or the way you see, we all love the poem Daffodils. And you see how we are able to, even when we teach, just refer to it. And how it gives us the pleasure of even reciting that. For example, when you say, for oft when on my couch I lie in vacant or in pensive mood, they flash upon that inward eye, which is the bliss of solitude. And then my heart with pleasure fills and dances with the daffodils. So this recitability comes when you have thoroughly enjoyed the poem as much as Wordsworth has enjoyed writing it and recalling the experience of seeing the daffodils. Now, though I know that poetry is self-expression, but poetry that appeals, poems that appeal, have to have an element of universality. What I mean by universality is basically that if you talk of love, now love is not a unique experience restricted to only one person or restricted to India. It's a universal feeling. So poems and poetry generally has this very special quality for its appeal to be very universal, true to all times, to all places, to all people, and that is universality. Now look at this, ambiguity. Now this is a very special feature to poetry. Now there's a picture there. I want you to look at the picture. If you look at it very closely, you may see that it is probably showing you the beak of a duck. But when you look at it from a different angle and when you look at it towards the left, you see a duck there. And when you look at it from the right side, you start seeing a face of a rabbit. And that same beak probably looks like the ears of the rabbit. Now, the point is why I talked of ambiguity, and that's what lends poetry its charm. It's an intentional ambiguity by the poet. Why? Because it allows you to think on different ideas. It's a possibility of being understood in a different manner. This ambiguity is not probably the ambiguity of a politician, which is very intentional. You know, ambiguity in his words. The poet's ambiguity is to add charm to the poem. And probably also, that's why when we look at Shakespeare today, probably what he said in his times, we find them very interesting. All the world's a stage, it's still a stage. There's no ambiguity there. But there is the element of universality there. Of course, the most important thing in poetry, as you all know, is imagery. It is this part of the poem that makes it very appealing. Because what does imagery do? You see, basically, I'm taking you to the journey of creation. Okay, we are going to create poetry. And you will realize that it is something that is a very interesting kind of teaching experience in the classroom. Now, we all know, we teach students figures of speech, similes, metaphors, alliterations, and all kinds of things, antithesis, all kinds of figures of speech. And then we have to understand that what is the role of all these figures of speech? Actually, imagery is so powerful in poetry that it creates some kind of, I would say, snapshots in your mind. You know, it lives by you. It just gives you a sensory experience also. For example, when I say the starry night, the night, I mean, night is an everyday phenomenon. The moment I say the starry night, this metaphorical use just creates a very, very strong image in your mind. Or when I say the sound of the drum in the distance. Now, when I say in the distance, it takes you to some distant past. It helps us. Basically, imagery helps us also, along with the poet, to get transported. And the last important thing, it invokes divergent thinking. Now, what I mean by divergent is accepting. This is where our teachers' acceptability, our role comes in. You see, we give them the idea that you enjoy it, create rhythms, have a feeling which you very strongly want to share, and then, you know, a different angle, a new perspective. This covers our very innate quality in all of us to be inventive in nature. It allows you to go beyond self. This is how I would look at poetry as a very, very special genre. And I'm sure we have lots of people after me, because we are covering, as I said, all the poems, who will bring out how this is reflected in the collection of poems that we have for our 12th standard book. Now, there is something very important. Poetry leaves an effect on us. Every piece of reading, no matter, but poetry has a different kind of effect. Now, what is it? It stirs your imagination. It makes you also imaginative. When we read the story, we look at the character, we look at the plot, we look at the theme. But here, you see, you start wondering, how did the poet imagine such a thing? And this allows the reader, the learner, the listener to start imagining. So imagination is something which can make you take a plunge. So you know that poetry is something which has a creative power. And this creative power comes from our primary faculty of imagining, which is a primary faculty of creation. The second effect of poetry, the vivid pictures through imagery. You see, they stand out in our minds. They give so much of clarity to our thoughts. And these vivid pictures remain with us. When you've read a good poem, the impact of it remains with you for a very, very long time. And what happens when your imagination is stirred, when you can live with those vivid pictures, then the resultant is creativity. Creativity starts taking birth. It's there. We are all creative. But now, you see, you start thinking with a different perspective. You start seeing, oh, you read a love poem, you see the passion of the poet, and then you start relating it to your own life. And there is the birth of creativity. It simply means in simple words that you have started the thinking process. Your thinking has started. It provokes your thoughts. Now, when your thoughts are provoked, what happens is you start becoming expressive. You start feeling like sharing your ideas, your thoughts, your feelings about the same thing. And then you come out of the ordinary realm. And naturally, big impact of poetry, as I talked, the various rasas that it generates is how you emotionally respond. And how we emotionally respond all depends on our sensitivity towards the poem, towards the theme, towards the language, towards the expression. More powerful becomes your thought. So you have different kind of emotional response, reactional response to the poem. Now, coming to subject matter, like any other piece of writing, there is always a theme, something that you want to express. And in poetry also, you do have a basic theme. But what is more important is how the theme is dealt with. And therein comes the style, the length of the lines, the stanzas that you create, the sound effects that you create. All that is a part of the style of the poem or the rhythm that you bring in, the way you present your ideas. So this is the kind of effect, because when you enjoy a poem, you start thinking on the lines. You may be having a favorite. Some of us may like Wordsworth, his love for nature. And then what happens is you start seeing, how does Wordsworth express his love for nature? And then you start seeing the commonalities. You start seeing the images that he uses. And you start even analyzing your own mind as to what makes it so interesting for you. And now this comes to our topic. So I've given you a background, how you are already at that platform when there is an urge in you to start expressing. And that is the birth of creativity. Now, coming to this, what is creativity? It is innovative ideas into reality. When ideas are just in your mind, if they are just hazy thoughts in your mind, there is no creativity. It is there. But when you actually express them, when you put them, you take a pen and you put those ideas, you put your new approach, your own innovativeness, your own new creation, and you pen it down. It is, see, because we all have the ability to perceive, all of us. Let's take it as the denominator that all of us can perceive. You see, every teacher, you teach the same poem. Now, Indian weavers, for example, every one of us will come from our own ideas, our own innovations, and we will carry it along with us when we teach it. And students will have their own perspectives, their own perceptions of things, their own perceptions of the realities, their own experiences, and they will also like to talk about it. So this is the first step when you actually put it in practice. Now, how is this creativity born? When you can connect, even many times, very, very unrelated things. They don't have bearings. This is what the metaphysical poets did. You see, where religion and the real world of physics met. You could never think a material world has something to do with the spiritual world. But John Donne always made us see the reality that in the spiritual existence, he could relate it to so many ideas which probably we cannot even imagine. Unrelated ideas. It's a manipulation of ideas. And that's what makes it very interesting. For example, I came across a line which said, marriage is nothing but marriage is like a root canal. Now, a root canal is from dentistry. And when you think about line, I mean, it's such an unrelated thing. We talk of marriage of true minds and hearts and passion. But to compare it, to create a simile with a root canal, a procedure that a dentist does on the dental chair, is a very far-fetched imagery, but the more you start thinking about it, you find that it's a very interesting comparison. And this is what I mean, connecting absolutely unrelated ideas. Now, creativity comes definitely from deep thinking. It comes from transcending our traditional beliefs. And that's how is the result of creativity, analytical and symbolical. Now, analytical and symbolical, because your mind analyzes your process of assimilations. You know, whatever we see in life, wherever we go, we travel, we take journeys, we travel, we come across different kinds of people. We have a lot of experience. All that, you see, we keep on imbibing it. We keep on taking in it. And somewhere or the other, our mind keeps deciphering them, analyzing them. And ultimately, in this process, we start seeing so much of unrelatedness, and so much of symbols get born. So it is also the analytical ability and symbolical ability is basically a result of seeing reality, perceiving reality in a new way. Now you can, you know what creativity really does. It's just a new approach to an old thought. It's like having the old wine in a new bottle. Now love is, and it's a feeling very, 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 very old. You can see it in Kalidas, and you can see it in Shakespeare. You can see it in Donne, and you can see it till present times. Your own students, you know, when they think of writing a poem, the first thing that comes to them is the theme of love, whether it's a fulfilled love or an unrequited love. So, I mean, it's a same theme, but it's the approach that you have. So creativity is a birth. So this is how we see, we go through this process. We have something to say. We see some relationship. We start thinking about it. We think how it has worked for us. It is, as somebody said, I mean, it's a powerful feelings. You see, it's an unleashing of your powerful feelings. Poetry is what? It's the feelings that are within you and you want to express them. Now, this is a major question. I heard somebody, one of our speakers, say that this is something that people will like to leave it, even if it means a small question. Because how do you expect students to be creative in an examination where they have to write the entire English paper for 3 hours and you want them to be creative? We don't expect students to be Shakespeare's. We don't expect them to create love poems like John Donne. And we don't expect nature to be written the way or perceived by Wordsworth. But personally speaking, I think when we give an opportunity, and this is my very strong belief, and I have found creative expressions in my students, sometimes I wonder how beautifully, how differently they are able to express things that can never even occur to my mind. I find these young, enthusiastic 17, 18-year-old people are able to perceive it. So the question that I'm putting to all of us is, can we be all creative? I do not know what you think, but if somebody would like to share his or her opinion here, I would really like to welcome it. Somebody put it very beautifully. A poem is nothing. Sheetal Gaude is nothing but our newborn child. So you see, of course, some very beautiful Rosina Syed says, we can all be creative. Pictures are so perfect to points. Okay, thank you for accept. Of course, I have taken my daughter's help to create. Yeah.
I would like to tell you that we are live on FB also, Facebook also.
Okay.
And there Praveen Nikam, Diya Patekar, Vallabh Shelar, B.R. Patil, Somnath Bhore, Ram Vishwakarma, Dattatreya Kadam, Anil, and Yashwant, Somnath, and Sakshi Parihar. These people are also active and they are continuously, replying to your queries. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. So whatever I could see, 2 or 3 on the telephone, I feel that generally we all think this is our thing. No, poetry is only for the special people who are very gifted and all kinds of things. Maybe compositions can differ, but we are all creative people. You leave the child with crayons, give him a piece of paper and let him unleash his imagination. And sometimes you will wonder that what a beautiful creation. It's only when we bind people, when we create boundaries, that this is what I expect. This is the right answer. This is this activity, this is the result. It's that time that we actually close all the doors to creativity. So who has to take the responsibility? I, as a teacher, and my appeal to all of you who are in this very, very making a difference kind of a profession, because we mold, right? So we need to encourage our pupils. We need to accept that ideas which you have can be totally, absolutely, dynamically opposite, and they also need to be welcomed. So we need to, creativity, as I said, we all have it in us. What we need to do is allow it to grow, allow it to flower and blossom. And this is what, as teachers, I mean, this is because probably all of us are teachers. So we need to accept. It is only when we come from our narrow thinking, our own traditional beliefs, our dogmatic ideas, that we create barriers. And once you allow, and if you believe you can teach creativity, I think you'll forget teaching pieces in the book. Because generally, we are teachers who think, oh, I have to complete the portion. But once you teach I personally believe you teach one poem beautifully and the rest of the job is done. You don't have to go, except maybe some word meanings here and there. Students will be able to relate and it will make it so interesting. So before even you start or dare to teach a poem, teach them how to be creative, how to develop a creative response. And once you learn to accept, and once your own rigidity goes, and you embrace all the responses that come, they may be varying, the degrees may vary, but they are responses nevertheless. And we need to accept that they are responses as valid as our own responses. So once we get that every response that is coming to us is a value response, and there is no to it, and we embrace it, you will see wonders of creativity happening in your class. Because we all have, and this is research, I'm not saying it, lot of research on creativity in the 20th century, lot of it. Let me tell you here that our pointers are the 21st century, the most important skill of the 21st century learning process is creativity. Because a lot of research in all universities about the creative process, what it means, how does the world, how does the human race develop, what is something, when Shaw talked of the theory of man and Superman, creativity was what he really meant. So we all have this creative spark in us. We only need to understand and allow it to exist. So generally, what I mean by the creative side, we all see what everybody sees, but thinking is to see what others have not seen. So we are all seeing a beautiful sunset. Everything. We see a sunrise. These are natural phenomena, factual phenomena. But it is your response to that that makes your creative spark come alive and part of the learning process. As I said, it is a 21st century skill. So we need to accept it as a valuable idea, because it is this spark that empowers us. And a teacher is able to allow the learner to transcend from the traditional ideas by allowing this spark to ignite in the minds of the learners. Now, is creativity important? I think I've already proved it. But if some of you can just tell me, why do you think creativity is important? I would really like you people to participate instead of me just telling what I think about creativity. Yes, our students say students are more creative than teachers. Okay, creativity creates so many ideas in the minds of learners. Creativity is very important to connect in the classrooms. Very well said. Ravindra Kadam. In Marathi, they say, Je na dekhe Ravi, te dekhe Kavi. Very beautiful. This is what I said. An eye to see things. So it is very, very important because it gives us happiness, says one. The other says it creates diversity, Anupam, Maitre. Then you have Humaira Zubairi says it helps us to think differently. It's a beautiful mind that creates the beautiful world. Creativity is very, very important, says another. Surekha Kulkarni, it brings out new ideas. And more than anything, there's a beautiful word there. It creates a cathartic effect. It fuels our imagination. It's food for thought. It opens inner mind. I'm so thankful to such wonderful creative people who are trying their best, and they all believe that it is something very attractive, very open-minded. There is a teacher who says, Mrs. Dubey, as it makes us feel so alive. Very beautiful. It makes you feel active. It is not a passive feeling. It is necessary to live. And so many, many responses coming. Let's have a look. I look at it as the need of the hour. It's so important that you need creativity in everywhere. You know, when you go, even when our students go for an interview, a person who really gets selected for a very prolific job, highly paid salaried job, is very creative. He has a different angle, a tangent thinking. You ask him a question and there is an out-of-box thinking. And that is what probably attracts the management. So it's a need. And this need, you see, we can start with languaging, because ultimately it's language that will program our minds and our nerves. In neuro-linguistic programming, we talk about how languaging helps us to create. So it's a need of the hour. And more than anything else, it gives you autonomy. It gives you a sense of freedom. You know, and it empowers you. This freedom empowers. It's a very empowering effect. You know, when I enter a class and I say, students, we are going to learn this, and this is what I expect. What I'm doing is I'm restricting. I'm not giving them the freedom to be. And this, when I'm open to teaching poetry, any poem, let it be a very mundane kind of a poem, and you leave it open to creativity, and you will realize that a poem that you never valued, you start seeing so much meaning into that poem also. You remember in the earlier 12th standard book, we had a poem that simply told us about the life in cities. Nothing very poetic about the poem. But the moment you allowed creativity to come in while teaching that poem, we created a wonderful poem on the same theme. It creates joy. You see, when you allow it to blossom, when you allow it, you make the students also feel so happy about it. It gives you a feeling of security because it eliminates all doubt. What is the doubt? Whether what I think about it, is it going to be acceptable by my teacher? Is she going to like me because of it? You see, these are various doubts. And the moment a teacher is very open to listening and receiving the student's response, the student feels very, very secure. And it gives him a sense of freedom. And you know, freedom is something that we all value. We don't like to be in bondage. We don't like to be engaged. And the beautiful result of this freedom is it inspires. Ultimately, learning should be an inspirational process, isn't it? It is not something that you are doing for 2 marks this, 2 marks this is complex factual, this is this is simile. What is a simile when you have like and as, this compared to that? I mean, this is not the only purpose of teaching. The purpose of teaching is to enable, to empower your students to become self-learners. And that's the role of creativity. And a very, very important thing is, it helps you to show empathy. A feeling which is very important, that you give value to other people's thoughts and ideas as much as you value your own ideas and thoughts. So it also affects a behavioral pattern. It helps you to identify other viewpoints. Let's quickly run through the barriers. Do you think there are barriers to creativity? And I think there are barriers. First of all, we as teachers become the biggest barriers to creativity, but there are barriers to creativity. And when we are teaching creativity, why we need to know them is because when we teach creativity, and I believe you can teach creativity, you can have 1 or 2 lectures in your 12th standard where you can teach your students creativity, and I'm sure they'll be thankful to you for the rest of their life, because you would have enabled them. You would have empowered them. They would have forgotten which poem they studied, but they would always remember you as a teacher who made them create a poem. One of the biggest barriers is fear. Can I do it? I mean, how will I be accepted? Stress. I think we teachers can help our students to come out of this, to cross this barrier. Our own personal beliefs. Many of us, now it's okay, it's too late, I can't do it. You know, our beliefs are big interfering factors in the teaching learning process. So you can really eradicate them. Traditional attitudes, stubborn attitudes, they also come as a barrier to creativity. Now there's a picture here. I mean, probably all of you have seen these pictures. You know, we all expect students to perform, but you know, we don't give them a fair play. You have the elephant there, you have the monkey there, and you expect all of them to climb the tree. Now that is a big barrier to creativity. We don't expect students, we don't give them a yardstick that your poem has to be like X, Y, and Z. So we can eradicate. Self-criticism is another very big barrier. Oh, what kind of a poem is this? There's no imagery in that. You see, and that will give a sense of failure, lack of time. That is what most of the teachers say. How? I mean, 2 marks, and then how much time? Well, that's only a barrier you need to cross and tell your students you can be wonderful. Lack of focus. So these are some of the barriers. Coming to the next, a very vital question. Can you teach creativity? And my answer is yes. A creative teacher automatically generates creativity. There's nothing very special that you have to do. So coming to this, how do you teach creativity? What do you have to tell your students? These are practical tips that I'm giving you, which you can actually practice in your classroom teaching. It doesn't take time. You have to just tell students, write about whatever you know, because you know so much. Make mental pictures of what you know. Ruminate over them. Think about them. And just write what you feel like writing. You don't have to know meter. You don't have to know rhyme schemes. Just write. Self-express. It's like giving some color and a canvas to an artist and say, draw what you feel like. And you will see that it is possible. You can also tell students you have so many memories, so many experiences, good, bad, bitter, happy. The realities of your life, use them, write about them. Express personal reflections, whatever you think. And when you do that, when you express your personal reflections, I personally believe, and research has proved it, it has a therapeutic effect. It makes you feel good. It is a kind of a emotional, mental healing process that takes place. Write what you feel, what you see. That's all. Just write about it. And you will see that we must have. And when you observe, when you see, now seeing is very, very important for creativity. That is, pay attention. It's like, Wordsworth saw a violet hidden by the mossy stones, a small, tiny flower, purple in color, half hidden by the eye. But see how beautiful the Lucy poems mean to us. That little unnoticed flower, violet in color, by the mossy stone. Now, this is what you have to tell the student. Take in the new perspective. So it is not very difficult. So when you talk of it, you can make your students. There are some tools that I have just suggested, methodologies that you can use. Tell your students, what do you want to say? Know your goal. Okay. So once you know that, then introduce mindfulness. Now, what is mindfulness? It is that you are engaged with that idea, with the thought. So that is, tell them what is mindfulness. It's a deliberate pondering of a thought which has been troubling you or has been living with you, has not left your mind. It has obsessed you, you're possessed by it, whatever. Then you can also tell them, don't use cliches. Cliches are oft used quotes. Probably when they started, they were new, but then overuse has really worn them out. So you can tell students, better thing is don't use the same metaphor, try something new. Use images, because images are very, very, very effective. And of course, you can also give them guidance by saying use concrete words, action words, dramatic words, instead of very abstract words. So your poem or your writing will speak volumes. So these are some of the methods that you can use for creativity. Use of visual aids, especially these days, many teachers use in their classroom teachings, PowerPoint presentations, projectors. So when you use these various aids, it really ignites the minds of your learners and they too get involved in it. So can creativity be evaluated? Now, this is something I'll spend about 4 to 5 minutes, because there is a thought process that says that creativity is something creative. It is something very subjective in nature. So there are lots of views of educators about it. Lots and lots. If you read, you will say, some will say, no, it is so subjective. You cannot just evaluate it. You can't give it any. But modern research and modern educators believe that creativity can be evaluated. And anyway, when we put it as a question in our exams, we need to evaluate it. Now, we need to have some guidelines to evaluate. How do you decide how much marks to give? What should be the criteria? So this is something I have just penned it down. If a child is able to communicate, it needs to be considered. Now, English is not the native language for our learners. So if you've asked a question and he's able to communicate something, you need to give some kind of credibility to it. If a child is able to comprehend, understand the thing, even that needs to be acknowledged. Analytical ability, if he's able to go beyond that and pour in some of his own ideas, we need to think about it. If he's able to respond to a beauty of something, a thing of beauty is a joy forever, for example. If a child can respond to this statement, this lovely poetic immortal line by John Keats, then you need to understand that there is creative ability, can be gauged, can be judged. The type of response, the nature of response that comes from the learner. What is his ability, cognitive ability? You see, everything, if I go in details, it's a very, very long process, but I'm just giving you, as I said, it's a journey to creativity, and we need to think about, and what kind of a response is there? Is it a different response? Is it an emotional response? Is it a reactional response? Now, all these parameters will help you to understand what kind of creativity is there. Now, the question that comes to the minds of teachers, because when we introduced this creativity topic in the 12th standard in 2017, lots and lots of people asked me, because I got an opportunity and I put it there, then why do you want to evaluate creativity? It should be there, but it should not be, we teachers should not be subjected to evaluate. And I deferred. And why I deferred? Because we need to evaluate, because we need to know our learners' ability. You are just not going on. We need to understand their responses. We need to understand what they are taking and looking at it. And then you need to evaluate it, because it has to eradicate your own subjectivity. Very important. You need to evaluate it because you have to take, accept, embrace out-of-box thinking. You have to look, evaluate it if there is a proper creative use of language. You're teaching language as a language teacher. You need to understand how much of learning acceptability or language learning has actually taken place. And this is where you will not get that in a factual question, where you will just get the answer. You just have to pick it up and put it there. Not in the match the column either. So it is here where you will see what your language teaching ability, and then to look for motivational ability. This is why we need to evaluate. Coming to the next, in the previous, till last year's, I do not know the present evaluation pattern of the board. It is yet to come. But in the earlier pattern, the 2020 March exam that we all probably assess papers, we had 2 marks for creativity. And I just created some kind of parameter. When there is no response, as somebody said, they will rather leave it. I would expect my students, in fact, when I used to assess, I look for this. How has my student dealt with creativity? Half a mark if he or she has understood what you have asked him or her to do. 1 mark, I mean, these are just rubrics, just some parameters for you to understand. Now, this is where I think you will be all interested in activities that you can create in your classroom to teach creativity, to make your students creative. Going through the present book, I found that there are exercises at the end, like many other exercises, but they are general in nature. Very, very general. Compose 5 or 6 lines on good deeds. Now that's very, very general, but I have taken some poems, sample poems. I've just worked at it. It's just my last minute kind of thing, because this is what we had in mind for 2 marks, what you could do. You could just set an idea and ask the student the idea of the poem. You could just tell them, change the idea in the next 2 lines or in a particular line. This is one kind of activity. You can ask them to compose 4 lines on a word given. I have done the activity for you. I'll just show it to you. You can ask them to rewrite the stanza by changing the underlined words. You can pick up lexical laden meanings, words, ask them to change, see if the idea changes, accept it. If the idea doesn't change, but a new word is formed, even then you have a choice to accept. So it's only a potential. Compose another line to rhyme with the given line. This is one kind of an activity that you can create. Add 2-3 lines by changing the given idea. So they are so much. I mean, these are all studied poems throughout the year. 8 poems. They're going to do it for appreciation. They're going to do it for their questions, activities. So you can just pick up something and ask them to change the idea. You can ask them to use a rhetorical question in any of the lines. And you can ask them to compose 2 lines with a similar figure of speech. If a simile is used, ask them to change it using 2 other comparisons and things like that. Now you can, in classroom teaching, if you look at this, you can just have a fun in the class. You see, give them this picture or give them just a word, parting. Now parting, it has, you are thinking of one kind of parting. But students will come out with so many kinds of partings. So you have a parting, a farewell parting, a parting when a girl gets married and goes to a new house. You have lovers parting. You have a family parting for a short time. You have a soldier going to war, parting from his family, and all kinds of things. So you see, the very word parting will invoke so many responses, and all of them will be creative, and you can ask them to write on parting. Now, see, I've just composed a line. There is no return from the lanes and glades where summers were glorious and winters brought warmth. It's a party because there's no going back to those times, maybe childhood times, which will never come back. So just a sample that a simple creation like this, which probably takes you, it's vivid in nature, it gives you a metaphorical expression and things like that. Now change of idea. Now look at it. Oh, my love is like a red, red rose, a cliche today. Or like Shakespeare looks at love. Let me not to the marriage of true minds admit impediments. Love is not love, which alters when it alteration finds. Or John Donne, I wonder by my throat what thou and I did till we love. And you have my student. In the stillness of the night, I hear my throb tell me, my heart, this was the voice of love that filled me with charm. A very, very beautiful expression. Or a simple thing based on like, my love is like a red, red rose, my love is like a tornado. Fine. Now I'm going to our activities from the book. Dr. Pradhan dealt with the poem Indian Weavers in a very, very beautiful way and talked about it. So you have a picture of the Indian weavers and you can have an absolutely new activity. Here is your Sarojini Naidu on the picture. And here you have another picture of a potter. Okay, so you have Sarojini Naidu and you have a picture of a potter. Now, this is what I have done. Keeping Sarojini Naidu's poem there, I have written on the potter, another craftsman, oh my potter, for thee might, why shape a piece so slender and slight? Scrape the mud and mold without feel by placing it on a whirling wheel. So insensately you put me in fire to harden me from a lump of mire. You dent and painted with images so bright to gladden a heart with a pleasant sight. Now here in the last stanza, he talks of death. Now you can just use that stanza. See, I have taken a different image here. Oh, you potter, you create a sublime form and lend to a trifle an exquisite charm. I know that my form is bound to adorn a gorgeous ceremony ever and anon. So I have changed the whole idea, but keeping Sarojini, and just inspired by the way Dr. Pradhan really taught Indian weavers, I composed these lines last night. Now you look at it, change expression. You have another poem by Edgar Guest. Have you on here tomorrow? Now I have kept the same idea. I haven't given it a new title. Can you say tonight is what? Probably all of you gone through it. Now the same idea, I have just created different vocabulary, different expression. Can you pass through life without waiting, unmindful of the words? The same thing, not aware, they pierce like swords to break a heart or be full of harm, or words that embalm the outraged heart and turn despairs to hope. So the same idea has been written. You can say, you can give an activity wherein you can tell your students that you retain the idea and create a new expression. So this is what I have done with your present poem. Just taken 4 lines and composed another 4 lines. So they don't have to go too much out of something to create something new, something which is there. A very simple kind of activity. Once you do these 3 or 4 or 5 kinds of activities in your class, students will absolutely enjoy them and they will themselves create new activities. Now, yeah, I'm sorry, yeah. Now, this is an activity very popular with the teachers. This is just changing the words. This activity doesn't really take time. Look at it. There's another poem. The first poem. Still here I carry my old elision, the song of the open road. I have underlined only 4 words. Delicious, carry them, swear, in return. I've retained the whole thing, but look at the creative effect. Still here, I carry my old pleasant burdens, sweet burdens, anything. I mean, leave it to the student and they will find much better expressions also. I carry them. I bear them in mind. This is what I could just think immediately. I swear, I vouch. I mean, any kind of an expression. And I will fill them in return. Very simple. Not in return, but with reciprocation. So you just change the word and you've created a new kind of an activity. I think this is what they want us. Now, this is add 2 or 3 lines to make a different ending of the poem. There's a very beautiful poem in your selection by Dilip Chitre. Okay, Father Returning Home. And the ending of the poem is this: thinking of nomads entering a subcontinent through a narrow pass. And this is where the poem ends. And it just keeps you thinking. It's a poem that is so, I mean, it's such a harsh reality of old age and present times when children don't have time for their parents. And the old man just gets lost in his thoughts and nomads. I mean, it creates a lot of things, but you can just think of adding to that and see what I have done. Thinking of nomads entering a subcontinent through a narrow pass. I've just added the highlighted 2 lines. He escapes from the mundane routine of a life devoid of any charm. So he escapes, maybe escapes in thoughts, but it's just an open end. Just add 2 lines and your activity is ready. You can pick up examples from the book. Of course, we have something like compose 4 lines on your father. That may be a little difficult, but these type of activities can be examination activities. They can be activities that a creative teacher can, I mean, there is no end to making activities. I've just given you a few samples so that you enjoy the experience to teach creativity, because what you are teaching is not creativity, but fulfilling the curiosity of your learners. And I'm sure that most of you are more capable than what probably I could do in this small presentation. And you can actually teach creativity in a very, very beautiful manner in your classroom by always being creative. Always you can create and allow your spark to be alive within you and allow it to be alive with your students. Thank you so much for giving me an opportunity to take you to this journey of creativity. And now, if any of you have any questions, I am open to that.
Thank you, madam. Before we start this query time, I would like to make an announcement for every webinar. Today we have muted at least 50 to 60 videos. I request all of you to keep your videos off. Thank you. And now you can raise your hand. I can see Shobha Pawar, madam. Now, when we are taking the names of the teachers, we are allowing them to unmute. So they have to unmute themselves after we allow them, and then they have to put the query. Shobha Pawar, madam, please. Unmute yourself first, Shobha, madam. You have been allowed to unmute. Please unmute yourself. It has to be done from your end, and then you can speak.
Yes, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Yes, ma'am.
You are audible, madam.
Hello.
Yes,
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah,
Hello?
yes, please go ahead.
Nice presentation. Nice presentation.
Thank you.
Okay, next question, please.
There is a question from somebody asking me, don't you think the question of creativity should be allotted more marks? As of now, there are 2 marks. Well, you asked me, yes, but even these 2 marks were resented initially till I got good responses from the Mofussil areas की आमची मुलं छान करतात मॅडम, काय घाबरायचं नाही. And that was what was a factor of solace. Not in the initially when I got a lot of brickbats, but later on it was well accepted, and I think through last 3 years we are having it, but a valuable suggestion to put forth to the board in the evaluation pattern. There is another question which please guide us as to how to enjoy abstract poems. Well, there is no specific guidelines that can be given to enjoy poetry. It's how much you are able to identify yourself in the poem, how much of your own related experiences you can bring into it, what are the new avenues you can see, how much of your involvement is there in the poem. And once you find yourself enjoying the experience, then probably, as I said, it does not matter. There's nothing like the quality. Of course, richness of language, richness of imagery will always remain, and it will always continue to inspire us. But even a very descriptive poem can lend itself to a beautiful interpretation. It all depends on the teacher. So it is not abstract. Abstract gives more scope for teaching rather. It gives you more scope for your own divergent thinking, and you can indulge in it. So indulgence is possible. There's another question. Yeah, I can see one more question. And that is code mixing allowed in poetry? Now, code mixing in Indian writing has been an acceptable norm, and many, Nizim Ezekiel, Dilip Chitre, and many of our writers, Vilas Sarang, etc., have been using words and colloquial expression. So it is allowed in the sense, now when you are having an English paper for 2 marks, a creativity question, you don't expect a composition totally to be in Hindi or Marathi or Urdu. So if a word for effect is used, I think there should not be any, as long as the image is good and if it is there intentionally. If there is an intention in code mixing, it should be allowed and it should be accepted. There is another question. Do we need to teach the figure of speech for creativity? You see, you do the figures of speech because you have to ultimately, when you have to teach, you have to tell your learners that imagery is a very powerful weapon in the hands of a creator. In a very terse, in a very brevity, in a very, it's the soul of a poem. So when you use a figurative language, it opens so many dimensions to it. So when you teach them the basic figures of speech, all kinds, alliterations, onomatopoeias, sounds, then comparisons, and then when you teach all these personifications, oh Potter, apostrophe, weavers, Indian weavers, direct address, it brings in the closeness. So when you teach these in the class, or naturally when you are, if the child is going to create some piece, he will also try to use figures of speech, and that will add to the richness of the poem, to the fabric of the poem.
Yes, ma'am. There is a question from Prabha madam. Prabha madam, please.
Yes.
Meanwhile, she unmutes herself. There is a query from Facebook. Mohan Kale sir wants to know that to be creative, enriched vocabulary is must. What can be done to get the students to have an enriched vocabulary?
Well, it's a time proven thing that reading is the best thing that you can more exposure to language. And if you need to tell your students, let them listen to good news, read good magazines, good books, and lot of once you expose yourself to new learning, language learning, automatically this new vocabulary, rich vocabulary becomes a part of your own life, and
Yes,
you are
madam,
able to
exactly.
use words. So
Madam.
reading is,
Madam,
audio books are available, so you can even make use of them. So
Madam.
yes.
Madam, if I think even translation should be given space because it is also a part of creativity. So if translation is also given space in the other in the coming syllabus, so I think that will also enhance their imagination.
Right, but we are giving a lot of scope. See, that is a policy matter, and you and me are not the people who decide whether how much of translated work. But we have, like for example, Sarojini Naidu. She uses, she's talking of the Indian weavers with a language which is native. Now, Dilip Chitre, Father Returning Home, it's a picture of a local train in Mumbai. So it is very local. There is a locale to it, which is a normal Mumbai setting. So we have about 3 Indian poets. You have an English poet, you have an American poet like Whitman. So you see, we have to, because we are using translation where whatever, if they're in from Marathi as a subject or Hindi as a subject, they are reading a lot of translated, their own regional language there. So
Thank you.
it doesn't have to be a part of English so much.
Yes,
But it's
madam.
an opinion. It is nothing to be
Thank you,
based on
madam.
facts.
This is
Yes.
the last question. It is from FB, Facebook. How we should motivate students to do poem?
To write poems, you mean? Okay,
Yeah.
motivate is I personally feel when we used to have this Sahitya Bharati and I used to teach, and it was a very popular course in my college and a lot of takers. Whenever we taught poetry there, we found that every time you entered a class, there were students who had written their own work and they wanted you to go through it. And it was a very pleasurable experience. What happens is we all like to be creative. We want to teach creatively, but when it comes to going through the work or a poem written or the thoughts shared by our students, we teach come sometime again. So you see, you kill that creativity spark. So you have to spare time. And if you can correct it, you can ask the child to change the word, it will go a long way. And I'm very, very convinced. And over my 42 years in this profession, I can say one thing, that students remember you from the creative angle with which you taught the poem. And they come back to you. It's a very gratifying experience. And that's what is a teacher's reward. Anything else? There is one question here. We are not, most of the teachers don't allow their students to have free words. They are sticking on the rhyming words. Well, free verse, blank verse is rather the 20th century way in which most of the poems are written. So you don't have to say that every word has to rhyme, not necessary. I have shown you a couple of samples from my own writings, which I just created in a day or two for you people, that there was rhyme scheme that I followed in Sarojini Naidu's because it is there. But I haven't followed in Father Returning Home, the ending. There is no rhyme scheme. There's a long line and there's a short line. It's a different ending. So you don't have to stick to rhyme. Rhyme, rhythm, meter, this was there in the Elizabethan time. The metaphysicals didn't follow it. So, Age of Reason did not have rhyme. So, again, the Romantics brought in rhymes. So, it is just a matter of tradition. I don't think we have to, it's one of the factors. But there is a doubt. Please clear my doubt. Mrs. Amreen have sent a similar question. Somebody says that many chapters are taken from Sahitya Bharati. Now see, this is a collection. Now, if you saw the Sahitya Bharati, it was 4 years ago or whenever. It is discontinued from this year. So there could be poems because there are some all-time favorites.
Yeah.
We don't have a Shakespeare, but we always have a Shakespeare every time. But then it's a collection. It's a likes and dislikes, personal preference. I mean, there is no hard and fast rule.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, somebody has asked me one question that there are, do you want us to explain each and every line of a lengthy poem? Or is it fine if we can only talk about the concept? You see, I mean, concept is important, theme is important, but there are lines. Unless you explain the figure of speech, how will you do justice for a 10-mark question, which has personal response, which has figures of speech, complex factual kind of a thing? And there are Eliza. So you need to at least, I mean, teach the lines. You cannot, there's no shortcut to appreciation and creativity. It's a process and you have to accept it and enjoy it. More than anything else, I feel if you enjoy teaching and there is passion for what you do, I don't think sky is the limit for a teacher.
Good evening, all. On behalf of LE team, I, Mrs. Pranjit Gatiganti, take this opportunity to propose a vote of thanks those who have directly and indirectly contributed to this webinar. At the outset, I want to thank our today's guest speaker, Dr. Lakhbir Kaur Verma Madam. We are really thankful for an enlightening and creative session. We appreciate your advice through poetic creativity. You have touched all the aspects very well. We are thankful to our honorable mentor, Mr. Avinash Rade sir and Mr. Anil Bagde sir for their motivation and enthusiastic support. A special thanks to our organizing committee for their unflinching support and coordination. Our heartfelt thanks to all the keynote speakers, those who attended the webinar and gave their valuable feedback. Dr. Shubhra Roy Madam, Nadeem Khan Sir, Angle Madam, Dr. Dilip Damodar Sir, Mr. Praveen Mule Sir, Dr. Gajanan Malokar Sir, Srimati Raseswari Chonkar Ma'am. I'm thankful to all the teachers and students, those who have actively participated on Zoom, Facebook, and YouTube. With the permission of our President, Mr. Sunil Patil Sir, I declare today's session closed. Sir, we make some announcements regarding tomorrow's session. Until then, goodbye from me, but thank you.
Just a word, thank you to the organizers for making me so comfortable with the medium that I used it for the first time. Thanks especially to Patil and Premjit who said, and Taruna Patel who said, we are at your disposal, ma'am. And I'm really thankful for allowing me to use a medium with which I was not really very familiar. Thanks a lot.
Thanks a lot, all of you. Here am I for the announcement. After exploring the myriad shades of poetic creativity, here I am to appeal you to attend tomorrow's session. We are presenting another creative session by the renowned educationist, Srimati Shailaja Mure. Here I declare now that session is over and see you tomorrow at the same time with same enthusiasm. Thank you very much. Thanks.